WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacy and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. That intro is really long. Sometimes with that intro, I'm just like, wow. But the cool thing I will say is shout out to the people at Roadcaster, because being able to put your audio and do all your production while you're doing your show instead of all that post production is amazing. Now, dualities, those are amazing things to deal with your morality and your spiritual journey in life. Um, and being involved with people that handle dualities is a great thing too, because when you are able to talk to these people, they have the greatest perspective on life. They overcome adversity, they have a purpose. And everybody has a purpose, but sometimes it takes us a long time to find our purpose. And whenever I deal with someone like this, it's a great thing. In this case, I have a special lady with me here, and her name is Gina, and I'll get to her last name in a minute. But one thing that's interesting here is that she has had a full 1080, not 360, but a 1080 life, from a bartender to a nun to what she is today, which I'll let her explain that when we go through the nostalgic question of the day. And the nostalgic question is, who is Gina? Now, Gina's last name, so I do not chop it up. I'm going to let her say it to you guys once because she practiced it with me in the pre-call, because I do not want to mess her name, but we always want to stay authentic and we don't want to make it look like I can't pronounce a name. Now, mind you, I am from West Virginia, or live in West Virginia, so I got this little twang to my voice, and I do travel too much, so I talk a little fast, talk like an auctioneer. But Gina, could you please give us her last name first so that I do not chop it up?
Yes, it's Economopoulos.
All right, Econopolis. And what I
Almost.
Econ
Mop. Yeah.
Mopolis. All right, so that's what it is that I do. I took the Econo Lodge part, Econo, mop, and then the end of it just doesn't roll off my tongue.
Oh, it will.
Yes, so we'll get into this interview. So the great thing here, Gina, is the nostalgic question is, who is Gina? And I gave two titles that you have had in the previous run, which was a bartender and a nun. So those are two that have a lot of space in between them. But what is the now title? What is the now title that you have?
Oh, today I would say, who is Gina? Gina is a sober woman of faith.
Okay. And you
Yeah.
have a specialty in that you're an end of life doula, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so that's a trifecta right there. Bartender, nun, and end of life doula. Um, Cause and effect make all of them make sense. But can you give us the cause and effect that made this make sense for your life?
Well, to be honest, JR, I never thought I would be an end of life doula. I never thought I'd be here. And of course, as a kid, you have these dreams and these goals or whatever one thing. But yeah, my path, it didn't happen that way. Yes, you're correct. I was a bartender. So after college, I bartended. Doesn't every college graduate do that? That's what I thought. You go bartending, and at that time, I was in the bar scene world. I was not in the godly world or in the church world. I was raised Catholic. I had great upbringing, unconditional love, but yet Gina was searching for love, searching to be accepted, searching to belong, and that was the bar scene. So I did that for a few years. Yet during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. She died. I was with her. And so that was a change of my life right there. Another changing point. Or my first changing point, where it's like, what is the meaning of life? Like, what is the purpose? You ask, what is the purpose? And I was searching for that purpose. Why did mom die? What is heaven? Because people would say, when people die, they go to heaven. And I took care of her. I watched her. I was with her to her last breath. I didn't have faith. I didn't have hope. I had nothing. And it was like I was 23 and I'm like, I want my mom to be alive. But that wasn't her story. And of course, my story didn't end there, but I was in such a dark state of grief after my mom's death. So I was on this purpose again of finding the meaning of life. And that's where I came back to my Catholic roots. I came back to a aha moment, a God moment, like a present moment, like wow, there is a God, there is Jesus, this everything, and then in that, I went from one extreme of bartending, telling everyone they're going to HE, no, being a, I mean, I was going bartending, living in that hellish environment, and then I went over to being a nun, and for 12 years. So I
Whoa.
joined, the sisters, and I thought that was it because I was on this holy roly journey. I thought, and once again, I thought that was my purpose. Being a Catholic nun. I gave my whole life to the community. I married God, married the church, and I was a Franciscan nun, so I lived in the South Bronx, and we lived among the poor because we lived in the project. So that was so I thought that was my purpose. But as you could tell, I'm not a nun today, so God had other plans.
Right. So give me the transition and how did it feel like you left the religion, came back to the religion? So it was a deep relationship. I'm not going to make it sound like a breakup or anything like that, but transitioning back into the religion for 12 years, that's a deep commitment. And then transitioning not out of it, but awakening in a different morality state, if that's the best way
Yeah,
to put it. Because I figure that is what it is. Um, because here's
yeah.
my question: like, I would have to conform. That would be the way that I would think. I'd have to conform to come back to the religion in that capacity as a nun. So, how did you transition from like leaving the convent and going back out into the regular secular world?
I was lost, JR. It was a very difficult transition because in my religious life at the last several years, I endured a lot of pain and suffering, a lot of rejection. I wasn't conformed to their way of life. So here I'm in final vow. So I did everything I could, like in a marriage, right? You work things out. So I was sent away, etc. But then it came to the end of the 12 years that the sister who said I belonged there all this time sat down with me and says, "Oh, sister, I don't think you belong here anymore. You have to go." I was like, "What?" I mean, I'm in final vows. I did all. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this community, and here I have to leave. Now, mind you, I was in a full habit. I was sleeping on the floor. I didn't have much stuff with me. I gave up everything when I had made final vows. I gave up, I didn't have a car, I didn't have money, nothing. So when I left the convent, that's a great question. I was a lost pup. I didn't know who I was. Thank God, I want to say, is that during my time as a sister, at the end of my sisterhood, I met a lady and she ran a home for men and women with disabilities here in New Jersey. And she says, because I'm like, I got kicked out. I don't know where to go. I don't know nothing. She's like, why don't you come back with me and live with these adult men? Be a house mother. And I was like, I guess so. I mean, because I always had a heart of service. I'm able to help. So I did. And I did that for 2 years. And I have to say, it was a great transitional time because if I went right back into the world, like in the material and all, I don't know where I would be today.
Well, let me ask you this. So I don't want to go into deep detail unless you want to explain it. How do you get kicked out of a convent? Like, how do you, did you, are there, I always figured like there were certain rules, like if you're a nun, like, it may not be like if you trip somebody up, like, I'm not saying like, can you get, is it sort of like a court martial type thing that can happen in the convent? Like, did you get court martialed or something?
I felt like I did. I felt like I did. I just I felt I was emotionally abused because the last 2 years of my religious life, I felt like I was ostracized. How, I was like sent off. I was sent off. I was sent off. But from day one, from day one, when I would say 2 years before I left, they had said to me, "We need a break from you. You need to go get help." Me get help? What do I need? I was a very well loved nun. People knew who I was. I have a heart of service. I was out there with the poor, but for some reason, have you ever lived with eight sisters, eight women at once?
In college and different things, but like with me, when we have these type of divisions, it's some type of politic. It's somebody inside there. I hate to use this word. It's kind of like someone had a little hateration. Somebody didn't like you being popular because there's always someone that's undermining to me. Like when they see somebody that has a little bit of flair or charisma,
Yeah.
the charismatic one is always the sacrificial lamb because someone, you know what I mean? And I feel like
I,
that's inside your story because it just seems like
yeah.
why would someone want to get rid of the most popular or as some would say the most trendy person in the
Yeah.
convent because it's something's not fitting or maybe you're starting a revolution and you don't know it. A lot of times it's usually that revolution that people don't want to happen and when you're in a tight knit group like that or the conformity that they had to conform to,
Yeah.
they don't want anything to change that conformity because they're like, we like this. We like the tracks to be A, B, C, all the way to Z with a linear expression, nothing going any way or any different way. So now mind you,
It's,
this goes with morality too. So this is religion. So these are religious people that we're holding to a high degree, telling you we're kicking you out the door. Did that break your moral compass? Did that shake your
yeah.
identity with God?
Uh, yes, it did. And I mean, you have such great insight because it's so true, everything you said. Because in the long run, in hindsight, I felt like I was a threat to them. My personality was crushed, but I didn't have anything in me personally to say, hey, enough is enough. I didn't have any, because to be honest with you, JR, throughout my life, I was like, when I was searching for that love and acceptance, and I never had it inside. Like I had a poor low self-esteem before, even before the convent, even during the convent as a sister. I was a people pleaser. I was trying to be popular and things like that. And I thought being in the sisterhood, like you're right, religious, I was shocked. I was totally shocked. I was like, why is this happening to me? Why are good people, religious people, why is this happening to me? And my community was very well known. It still is. It is. I mean, they were very well loved. I was well loved. I would go around talks and everything. And I was a threat to the other sisters. That's my view. But I mean, of course, they probably have a different view. That was back then, but my view was like, yes. And it was when I left, talking about confusion, um I was the first sister to leave after putting all that time in, so
Right.
they didn't know what to do with me. I was the first person, plus I was Sister Regina, so they didn't want to, they didn't want, they didn't want to do it. They want to make it sound like I did it, like it was my decision to leave. And I had a very wise priest as a spiritual director who was a Jesuit, said no, you go in, you're gonna take off your habit, because they want, because it was so hard when you're living in a habit for 12 years, when that's your identity. And then here, your director says to you, you you have to cut strings once and for all when you leave. You can't like hold on to your habit. You can't, no. So he had me or he asked me to meditate on, there's a scripture called shake the dust off your feet and walk. And that's what, because that's how I felt rejected from my own people. And I was totally shocked. It took me a long time. And your question in regards with God, I still hung on to God because I was questioning. I was like, oh God, I don't, like this. And I remember the next day, here, okay, I go and leave. I take off my habit. I put on like a prairie skirt, thinking that I'm still a nun. I got bald head, so I put a kerchief on. I'm trying to find my identity. I went to mass the next day because that's what I was used to do, going to mass every day, praying the rosary and all this. So I go to the church where I was staying at. I go pray, and then afterwards, right afterwards, a lady comes up to me and says to me, "Oh, sister, what order are you from?" And I have to say, I was in tears. I said, "What order? I just got kicked out yesterday." You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I was like, I don't know who I am. I did not know. It was such a, I was shat. My heart was broken. It was totally broken. And that's why living with the men with disabilities, they loved me no matter what I did or didn't do. They poured love into me. And slowly but surely, I came to realize, okay, I'm not a sister anymore. That's not my path anymore. I fulfilled one vocation in my life, and now I got to figure out what God wants me for my second vocation, which I wanted to find a man. Okay, maybe I'm meant to marriage because JR, I always wanted to be married at the age of 18 and have 8 kids by the time I turned 25, but that never happened. But that was
Right.
my dream of everything. But
But what's crazy, like just with this whole thing of them kicking you out of the convent, they controlled the narrative, got it the way they wanted it. But like through all this, I know I hate to do this reference, but I would have had to throw on some Luther Vandross and listen to "A House Is Not a Home" because it wouldn't like that. I'm going to tell you, like on a religious end, like my mentality when it would come to my religion, I would lose my religion. I mean, I would be on some George Michael's. Like I know I'm doing all these '80s reference, but I would have been like George Michael after he left Wham, and I would be out here just my spirit and everything will be explosive for the simple fact that these
yeah,
every place, like you said, from your home to there, you always there was love at home, but it wasn't a home, it was a house. Everywhere you went until you had this turnaround with these young men with the intellectual disabilities, um, was just a house. It wasn't a home. And
no,
and what I like about your story is that like people don't understand that just because someone says they love you and they're or they act like they're showing acts of love, that may not be the love that you need. And it took you an unprecedented time at that point for yourself to figure out how you needed to be loved, right? And these men that were disabled loved you unconditionally because they needed you, you needed them, and that bond was struck there. So the structure that was built there, it wasn't like you had to go through a hierarchy to get love. And for the
yeah,
first time in your life, there wasn't steps and challenges to get love, right?
yeah. And JR, it is so true everything you said because I grew up with a lot of love, and then here I go into the sisterhood and you're right. They love me the way they love pizza. That's how I felt, like that was their kind of love. It wasn't, and then here with the men with disabilities, they love me unconditionally, which I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. I didn't know, I mean, I knew I needed it, but I mean, it was a very difficult time in my life, and even like you said, not only to say, "Am I a sister or not a sister?" Okay, now I'm Gina in the world, but I had to relearn. I had to learn how to have relationships. I had to learn how to talk to people. I would be on whether it's the train or in a bar, and I would talk to this guy, and I would be like telling my whole life story about being a nun and how I was persecuted, and then thinking that they will call me for a date, I'd be like, "Yeah, that'd be my first date." Nobody called me, because I would pour my heart, like my anger and everything. I mean, because yeah, I endured so much as a sister. Like I felt like I killed someone, which I didn't, and I felt like I was on chain, a dog on chain. When the dog, like this, and I couldn't. So now being set free from that, not realizing it, and being in an environment of real love, unconditional love. I mean, and it's just amazing that I was able, not able, but I received it. I received it, and I was there for 2 years, and then my journey continued. It didn't end there, and I was still looking.
All right. So after you left helping these men, these intellectually or these disabled men, where did life take you? Did you finally meet that someone, or did you meet something that sparked your interest, or something that showed you a different aspect of love that you had not received thus far?
Yes, I went to Gina loves the beach. So what did I do? I come to the Jersey Shore. That's how I ended up here on the Jersey Shore. But mind you, JR, I didn't know how to rent. I didn't know how to own anything because, I went from one convent with under this household
Always jumping
and
from
here,
extremes.
yeah. I mean, I learned, and thank God my dad was alive at the time. So he helped me and provided for me because I didn't have any money to my name. And I'm 42, 43 years old. And I rented an apartment. Thank God it had furniture. I wouldn't even know how to pick out furniture. I was like, thank God, like it had. I would not know how to do that. So I did that. I was a block from the beach, and I love the beach because to me, beach is where heaven and earth meets. That's peace, peace, and and that's another thing I was searching for was that peace. And then I was also wanting at that time was like, you know what? I'm done of serving. I'm done of helping others. Uh, as a sister, like I said, all I did, we helped others. I helped gang members, youth, elderly, the dying, the dead, you name it, I was there. Even I did like 20 years of helping others. So I was like, okay, Gina wants to come to the beach, comes to the beach. Now I had to find a job. And a lot of, I mean, and like I said, I'm very good in helping people, any kind of social job or first whatever. But I didn't want to do that. So I went back to bartending. That's the only thing I knew how to do.
Oh, hold on,
So
hold on. We gotta stop for a minute. So basically, you were out here in these streets, hopscotching around in the world. You started out, you went to college, you went to bartend. You took 12 years of your life, right? You gave it to the Lord, you gave it to the convent, and then things didn't get situated properly there. And then you gave 2 years of your life to helping these individuals, which I want to thank you for that because you're a natural helper from the extent of what you have told us thus far. And you had to put that religion on the back burner again because the bar was at the beach, and that makes the most sense to make money. So you're in the bar, you're working, you're making drinks, you're having a good time, you're enjoying that Jersey Shore life, and it's a beautiful place. But one thing I will say about New Jersey, I'd hate the fact when I do come out there that I got to pay to get on your beaches. That's the only thing I want to throw in there. You got to pay to
us
get
too.
because I was in Asbury Park area and I had to pay to get on the beach, and I was like, "Come
Yeah.
on!" But
And I
anyway,
live right by Asbury,
all
five
right. So then
minutes.
you know exactly
So
what
I know exactly the board and everything. I know Asbury well. So
right. So you know what I'm saying. Like I
yeah.
never understood why I got to pay to get on the beach, and y'all
Yeah.
beaches aren't very big. No offense or anything, but it's like I'm just paying to get on a piece of real estate for a little bit, which isn't a lot of money, but still you got to pay. Now going forward, you get through this, and it's time to think about a different portion of life. So we're bartending twice. What happens after we're at the end of this bartending life? What goes on with you then?
Well, that's when the Danny walked in. When within a month, as I bartended, a gentleman Danny comes in. We have this relationship. We start dating. We fall in love. Like this, and he finds out that I'm a nun or former nun, and it didn't scare him. But then yet I come to find out he's an alcoholic and he was drinking. He was in his disease of alcoholism. Not familiar that at that point, but I figured anybody could stop drinking, especially if you're with me, you love me and everything. And he had encouraged me to go to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program for family members. So I went there and I'm like, okay, now how can I stop? What can I do to stop him from drinking? And of course, he was fighting his demons. He was trying himself in and out of the rooms of AA, going to rehab, out of rehab. But great guy, JR, great guy, but simply sick. He was just a great guy. And then he found sobriety, JR.
What?
It was amazing. And when you could find sobriety and when you see that in someone, it was like the best day. But he found it out west in Arizona. Didn't bother me. I'll go to West. I'll support you, Danny Timbuktu, with your sobriety because you're a great man. And this was back in 2012, summer 2012. And so we decided he came back. He got his truck. He drove back again. He's in his early sobriety. His mother goes for a ride, and JR, this is it again. This is my life. Finally, I found someone who loves me as me and that I could live a happy life with a white picket fence, probably not have 8 children, but you know what I mean? This is like
Right.
the desire of my heart. And said goodbye to his mom and him, and lo and behold, I get that tragic phone call the next morning that they were in a car accident in Indianapolis, Indiana. The mother died, burned up. Danny burned up. It was on Route 70, like the last before getting into Illinois. So they had to
Yeah.
transport him into Indianapolis, into that hospital over there, and we didn't think he was going to survive, but he did. So what do I do? At first I'm like, I can't believe this guy. What's going on here? It was perfect. He was sober. He was driving, and because he avoided a deer on Route 70 down over there. And
Yes.
so I uprooted. I went by his side in Indianapolis. I lived in Indianapolis for a few months or a year almost with him, and I'm like, okay, God saved you. Saved you, saved you. We're gonna live a life. We got involved with the rooms out there, AA, and as well as Al-Anon. Friends stepped up. They weren't friends at the time, but these strangers stepped up to help us because we had nobody, no one, and he was burnt on his half of his body, so we had to do a lot of wound care there at the hospital. And so everything was great, so we decided to stay there. I worked at Steak and Shake. Everybody knows
Okay.
Steak and Shake out
Yeah.
over there. And we got an apartment, and we're doing, this is it, this is it. But then yet once again, I was not really familiar with the disease of alcoholism. And now, of course, I know what does an alcoholic do when they're in so much pain, emotional, because he saw his mother burn up. He couldn't do anything in this accident, and he saw his mother died. So Danny picked up. He drank, and so I flipped out on myself. I'm like, I can't believe this is, I was very beside myself. I kicked him out. I was angry, manipulating. I wasn't working a program. I had my own disease working in me. And I was like, you better get sober, but I'll still marry you, but you get sober. But then it turned out that I had I found him dead a month before our wedding day, from alcoholism. He happened to fall because I had kicked. He went in his own apartment. He tripped, fell, hit his head, and he bled out. Like he bled, so he died. So I found him dead. So this is another turning point in my life.
Right. Right.
And now at this point, Jr. I disowned God. At this point, I hated God. At this point, I was so tired of keep pushing forward, keep getting up, keep believing, that I was like, enough is enough, God. And I was simply existing. I was dead myself, but just living. I can't explain it, but I didn't want nothing to do with God, nothing to do with anyone. I was in my own little grief complicated world that I just, like, I felt like any kind of hope I had or anything, it always was a wrench, a dash, a dash. So, yeah, and that happened all in Indianapolis.
Wow. And I travel that area because Columbus, Ohio, across, you take 70 to go straight out there. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that heartache. Now, from that heartache, an amazing thing happens sometimes, and I hope this happens in your story. You have to have that rising phoenix action, where you
Yes.
rise up and
Yes, I
you
did.
and you get to a point where you're able to start mending some things. You can't build every single thing back because everything can't come back because of the love of your life, I presume, correct?
Yeah.
The love of your
Oh,
life
yes.
is gone. And when you're separated from a person like that, nobody understands that grief. I dealt with it in
No.
2019 myself. So no one understands that grief, and like it's a odd, and you get in a weird place. You either get out of that weird place or you just stay in limbo for a while. So did you stay in limbo or did you go forward?
Well, I stayed in limbo for maybe a few years or a year at least. I can't, I don't really remember what took place. And it is true, grieving for a loved one like that, but also grieving to someone who died of the disease of alcoholism, because it's like a stigma. It's the world doesn't, they don't know it or whatever it may be. So it was like a double whammy on my part that I felt and believed and was treated in so many ways. So what I did was I came back to the Jersey Shore. I was like, just moving, breathing. Thank God I was breathing. And then I did find, like, I had to get a job. My father was still alive. He helped me out at this time again to find an apartment, and I did, I had all of Danny's furniture, so at least, and I had a shrine in my apartment of Danny. I was thinking that he would walk right in, like, even like, okay, even after the first year, I felt like saying, okay, Danny, I survived. Now you could come back. But it took me not a long time, but it was a painful, lot of feelings, a lot of tears. But then yet during that time, I went in, for some reason, I went to an AA meeting, an open speaker, listening, because I wanted to find out. Now, like I said, I'm a searcher. I like to find out. I guess I was motivated to find out why did, go into these rooms of AA to say, why is Danny dead and you're still alive? Why is Danny, why are you sober and Danny's not? I don't understand it. I couldn't understand that. And because Danny was a great guy. So I went and I was invited to go into these rooms. I said, I'm not an alcoholic, but they said, no, just come in and you could identify yourself as someone that desired not to pick up. Sure, why not? I was so angry. I was so sad. Nobody really knew my story. I wanted to go in and kill everyone because I couldn't understand what sobriety meant or why. Why are people laughing? Why are people grateful? My Danny's dead. I was screaming that. So as time went on, somebody, within I was doing that for almost 11 months, going to these rooms. It's right across from the beach, Belmar, right by Asbury. And I would go, and somebody came up to me and says, Gina, you come here every day. You say you're not an alcoholic, but what is your relationship with alcohol? Not me, it's Danny. Not me, it's you. You guys. And then I'm like, aha. I took that seed that she planted within me and I look back in my life, JR. Wow, alcohol, the disease was there from the beginning throughout
Right.
my life. I wasn't that fall down. I mean, there was a time I was a fall down drunk, but yeah, I found God, so I didn't fall down much, and
Right.
even in the convent, the disease was there, but it was so cunning, baffling, insidious that I wasn't aware of it. I did like to drink, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because I don't come from a family of alcoholics, and I always thought an alcoholic was a guy in a paper bag, like
Yeah.
drinking,
Wano.
guy,
Yeah.
and I didn't, under the bridge. I mean, that's another stigma, and so anyhow, as I was thinking and about all that, now meanwhile, mind you, I hated God. I didn't want nothing to do with God, but still I was there. And then on April 2nd, 2015, God willing, in April, I will have 10 years of sobriety. And I said, hi, my name is Gina. I am an alcoholic. And that's another turning point. I'm like, oh my God, that can't be me. I'm Gina Kanamopoulos. I was a sister. Sisters can't be alcohol. You know what I mean? This is all going in my mind and heart. But when I had said that, believe it or not, it was the best day and as well as a painful day of my life because everything I was carrying, the hatred, the pain, rejection, the anger, the fear, the self-pity, everything, all the hurts, the wounds, the grief just opened up. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And there was a voice inside me says, are you going to go drink this away? Or are you going to go sit on your pity couch like you like to do, be that victim? That's what I was, being a victim. Or do you want a new way of life? And I was like, okay. It didn't happen overnight recovery for me, it didn't like, yeah, like that. I went, it was like another journey of learning. So what did I do is go to meetings all the time, did everything that was asked of me, reach out, be honest, open and willing. And then I just learned so much and taking one breath, one day at a time. So that's why when you had asked me who Gina is today, Gina, I'm a sober woman of faith today. And it's been such a great gift that God has given me, which I never thought I would receive. And part of me don't think I deserve it, but God is all worthy, and he's been with me ever since. And now, like I said to you, I hated God with a passion. Now, of course, he's the love of my life today. Like he's always been there for me. There has been a greater power than myself that has loved me, which now today I don't need to go searching anymore, because that love is sitting within me, and that peace and that serenity and that hope and that light, JR, because being in such a dark place and thinking that you're staying here, not even, existing, and now I do exist, and I could participate in life today in a healthy way, in a healthy solution, one day at a time. So
Okay, and I like that. Now, your memoir, "Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk." You've gone to, we've done a deep one here. We went in, you gave us the relationship, you gave us everything, life and grief. I need you to do something for us real quick. This is nostalgic of West Virginia and commonplace. We do this thing called the shameless plug. Could you let everybody know where they can meet and greet you across the internet, and where they can get this book and the best way to get this book? And then I'll add in something at the end.
yes, it's available on Amazon, and my website is ginaecon.com. So I share with you and all your listeners, if anyone has any questions or any difficulties, anything, I'm there. There's a contact through that website, as well as I'm on Facebook. I started my own TikTok, and I'm also on Instagram.
Okay, so one thing I want you guys to do, everybody knows this thing, and I do it in every episode, but I'm going to do it one more time here, and this will be the last time I ever do this again. If you live in the state capital where you live, get the ISBN from this book, request it in your state library, and your state library will get it for every county in your state, but it has to be at the state capital library. Can't just be your regular old library, and that's a way to get her book immortalized and placed in every county and every area, I'm getting tongue tied, every place that it should be. And here's the thing, like in a state like West Virginia, I can run to Charleston, West Virginia. We only have 55 counties because we only have 1.5 million people, but we have 112 libraries. So that book can be in a lot of places. And that's the power of reading, and that's the power of structure there. So please, everybody, grab this book. Once you have the book, look at the ISBN number on it and go to your state capital.
I
Now,
appreciate that.
going further into this, I pay homage to a news magazine. Growing up, this guy John Stossel was comic relief. Elizabeth Vargas and Diane Sawyer were very poignant with their interviews. But there was this one lady, this special lady. She could interview you one or two ways. She could interview you, and it'd be a dull episode, and the newscast would turn off at 11 o'clock. Or she could give you, or do, she could have some really compelling questions and make the person more personable. And her name is Barbara Walters, the late great Barbara Walters. And what she did on 2020, not a lot of people can do, and not a lot of people, uh, since you can't see her anymore, go back and check her out. But the one thing about her, though, when she asked questions, her questions did make you think in a way that you normally didn't think. And on WV and Commonplace, I try to ask questions that make you think differently, that aren't like, too out of the way. So my thing, Gina, are you ready for your 2020 questions?
Yes, I am.
All right, so here we go. Here's your first one. What is the first thing you do in the morning?
I wake up and I pray.
All right, now after you pray, what is the first liquid you put in your body?
Water,
All right, so you put water in there. No coffee?
then coffee, but water
How many
first.
how many cups of coffee by 12 o'clock?
One.
All right, so one. All right, so you're modest. Okay, I like that. Now, after you're in the middle of your day, you're relaxed a little bit here and there. What is the first bit of pollution you put in yourself? And what I'm saying about pollution is like this. Um, here's an example. For me, pollution would be something like I go watch In the Heat of the Night, because it's something that me and my grandmother used to watch, and that was just something that worked out for me, and it was pretty amazing, and it was something cool. Sorry, anybody watching the video for technical difficulties. Something happened. Um, anyway, so my question to you is this: what is the pollution you put in your body? Is it watching TV? Is it? I'm not gonna say you smoke a cigarette, but what is something that happens in that instance?
No, I do have the TV on. I watch TV. I like Dateline.
Okay, so you watch Dateline.
Yes.
Okay, now
Yeah.
from that moment on, like how do you figure things out, and how do you go on about with the rest of your day?
Well, I'm not, what do I do the rest of the day? I watch TV, and then after that, what I do is I try to pause and pray. I try to meditate throughout the day, and at the same time, I try to promote my story too.
Okay, and I like that. I like that. That works out there pretty strong. Now, after you're done with that and you watch Dateline or whatever you're doing for the day, what's the first thing that puts a smile on your face?
My boyfriend Brian, for
Oh,
his support and
Brian.
love. Yeah.
Okay, Brian. Now, with Brian, what is it about Brian today that makes you smile?
His blue eyes.
All right, so he has blue eyes. So he's got exotic eyes like me. So yeah, I
Yeah.
already know the
Yeah.
story on that. And
Blue
you're
eyes.
and
That's
are you
this is yeah. Yeah. What's
something
that?
about the eyes? If you got the eyes, I know you're exotic, and it's something about it. So I know how that goes. Now, after that, when you're done and you and him have your evening to yourself, what is something that you and him do together that's special for you two?
Uh we like to we have a movie night.
All right. So
We
what's
watch
the
Net
what's the last next Netflix movie you watch?
we've been watching the Night Agent. Is that a TV? It's a TV show. Like we've
Yeah,
been
I know the
watching.
Night
We
Agent.
watch a Netflix.
Okay,
What's that?
I know who the Night Agent. I know what that is.
Yes.
That's a pretty good show.
Yeah.
All right, now
Yeah.
notice the whole episode that we've been on here. Your smile got really big when you said Night Agent. That's the John Social portion of this because your smile, you thought about it, it put you in a moment, it put you in a happy place, and that's what we wanted to do there. Now let's get on to the serious question. This is your first Elizabeth Vargas question. Becoming an end of life doula is such a profound calling. What inspired you to step into this role, and what does your work involve?
Real quick, it was from the death of my mom 33 years ago. I was at her deathbed, but I wouldn't take care of anyone. But when I came to know God and Jesus, and especially as being a sister, I had a taste of heaven or taste of peace. And then in that, I love being with the dying. And for some reason, God always put me with places of all ages, of all faiths during my sisterhood. They used to call me Sister Death because it's like, come on, sister, could you come here? And they always die. Whether and for me, it's a gift. It's to give them the dignity and the respect to die. So that's my service today, is that I'm an end of life doula, which when they call my service, to be present, to be peaceful, to help those loved ones that are passing from this life with grace and dignity.
Okay, now here's another question. Now, this is Diane Sawyer. So this one's going to be a little edgy. Many people fear death and avoid conversations about it. How do you guide groups and individuals and other people to find peace in these final moments? Because I'll give you an example. I lost my father in 1994 at the healthy age of 8 or 9. I forgot how old I was, but if I'm 39, then we can do the math on that later. Um, and for me, it wasn't anything I had to speak about because I had to be strong for my mother and sister because I knew that at that moment I didn't know I was becoming the man of the house, but I had to become a step above who I was. But how do you help people with this? I always wanted to know this.
Well, I guess it varies in each situation. First, if somebody's afraid of dying or afraid of death or fear or like that, it's okay because that's natural, it's healthy. So it's not, I don't change anyone's mind. But what I do share is just to feel the way you want to feel. And some people, I mean, yes, there's those stages of grief, but at the same time, I just encourage those who are that I'm with, whether it's the person who's dying, just feel, how do you feel today? What is your real feelings? What you feel like crying? Okay, I'm here to cry with you. If you want to be angry, yes, let's be angry together. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to miss them. It's okay. It's okay. And then those, yeah, and of course, I don't push my faith onto anyone, like, because they have their own. But I do pray, and I believe that God gives that person that moment of grace and peace to say, okay, it's time to go home, whether it's to their God, to their Buddha, to whatever faith whatever they believe in, because there is peace in another place that I believe. So, and I just love it. I mean, it's a passion of mine to be with them and to help them to say, "Hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay." And some I've been at very peaceful passings, and I've been at passings that they were hanging on to, hanging like they didn't want to die, but then yet just through prayer and just praying and just like, okay, God help them, in my own way. What can I do? And they do. And so everyone has their own journeying and their own passing, and I know God's there with them. And so, and if I could be there, which if God puts me there, then it's a gift. It's a true gift.
All right. Now here's to your Barbara Walters question. There was a country group that had a song called "What Hurts the Most," and everybody's familiar with that song to a degree. You may not be familiar with it, but in that song, the guy talks about being so close to something. And for me, I don't look back on anything because it's just a ponytails behind me. But about your situation, your whole life, what was it that hurt the most?
Oh, wow. What hurt the most is losing Danny, like of his death and his passing and everything. That yeah, it's even him in the convent, what I experienced at the convent, that deep rejection.
Okay, and I
But
guess
my first thought would be Danny, but then Danny loved me, so that kind of softened it. Where this what I endured with his sisters, they didn't love me. So I'm gonna change my answer.
and say
I'm just thinking about it. I'm gonna change my answer in a sense. It's two different kind of hurts, that I have experienced. But yeah, could be the sisters. It was a
okay,
very dark time.
and I can definitely go with that, because that's pretty profound. Now, this Phoenix Rising action, you've had to do this quite a bit. What was the hardest part about picking your face up off the ground?
I have to be honest, JR. I don't remember in myself. I say God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. So it was just, I think the hardest part was like, going into these rooms of AA and just sitting there. Like I and that's why people looked at me like, "Wow, look at her again. Look at, she's those who knew my life would say, "Wow." And then some people had pity on my life. Were like, "Oh, look what happened to Gina again." Yeah, I mean, so I do have to say the hardest, yeah, that's a good question. It's a good thing. That's a stumper for me, but I don't know how I really got up until now. I see it was truly God did for me what I could not do for myself.
And we're gracious that he did do that. Now,
Yeah.
the last question from Barbara Walters, because you see how they're kind of hard hitting. They get you right there. You see it gripped you and it threw you
I
over.
love them. I love them. I'm open. I'm open. Come on.
So overcoming adversity is something that you've done, and the success, the reward, the superlative out of everything is the life you have today. And having that is something that nobody can take away from you. But every lesson and everything that happened had to happen that way. But if you had to right now, outside of the book you wrote, if you had to do a billboard with your picture on it, with Danny's picture on it, with Brian, with everything that's going on, what would the pictures look like, and what would the billboard say?
Oh, it would be a picture of like a heart. It would be like a heart with maybe my face, and I would just say, the main thing I would say, you're not alone. Do not give up. Like, um, like a light. I would make it bright and light because I'm in the light. So I would have like that kind of billboard, but it would be beaming, saying, "Do not give up. You're not alone. Do not give up. You're not alone."
I like that. And I thank you for doing that for me real quick there, Gina, because I know that was hard. Now, to end this show, I want to do this real quick. Fortitude. Fortitude, because I give a testimony. Fortitude was something that gradually had to come into your life. And once you were able to establish fortitude, your self-esteem got built up. It got dropped quite a few times because I mean it was some WWE, it was some Bruno San Martino type. It wasn't being the champion he was. You had to be the
Yeah.
person on the low card under him for a while. And then
Yeah.
once you got into the main event, you were able to main event that WWF match in your life, the big one at WrestleMania. You were able to see everything full circle. And seeing everything full circle, that perseverance, the never give up attitude, the attitude of I may not survive is fine because you may not survive
Yeah.
every single thing, but you
Yeah.
never gave up, and never giving up has given you a great principle in life that no one else has right now, and that's to know that you made it through the hardest part of your journey. The hardest part of your journey, I mean, there's still hard parts, but you had to have that daunting, and I hate that this happens to people. The story to form your resilience, a story to do a reinvention, a story to take you through self-discovery. And when you did those three things, you became the person you are today.
Amen.
So, amen to that. And what I want you to do is the next morning when you get up, I want you to look in the mirror and remember the resilience, the reinvention, or you're reinventing yourself, and the self-discovery when you're out there helping these people, when you're being a doula, because you're always a doula, but I mean, when you're out there helping them,
Yeah.
you do those things inside your book, you do those things. And going on the unexpected path, faith and spirituality and healing. The key thing is here is healing. You sat here and you learned the greatest gift that so many people cannot understand or conceive or manufacture. You get that, right?
I understand. Yep. Because
And
you know what I say? I'm sorry, JR. I say everything I went through, I had to go through to become the person who I am today. And to be honest, I wouldn't change a bit.
so for that, Gina, I'm glad that we had you on the show. I love the fact that we were on here. And let me tell you, audience, this is something crazy. I hit the wrong button by accident. So we were on Facebook Live. We've been live streaming. So,
No. Oh
yeah.
my. Hi
And then
everyone.
and then my camera went crazy. And then my cheap camera, you see, I went from 4K to whatever I am
Yeah.
now.
It's all good to me. I hope yes.
So
Sounds
we were
good to
live
me.
streaming. We were live streaming on Facebook. So I want to thank you for that. And to end the show, like I always do, we're going to have that British lady take us out. Here she goes.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at onecommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening and tune into the next episode.
And for everybody that got this on a live stream, thank you so much because it was wild. My camera started doing crazy stuff. And Gina, I thank you for being a part of it because it wasn't supposed to be a live stream. It was just supposed to be a regular show, but we were live streaming on Facebook. So I'm going to end the live stream now. And anybody that's watching
I love it.
anybody watching this video, some parts will be edited, but the camera went out and I had to put the grainy camera on. Like, I feel like we're in 1972 with the way the lighting is because I do look grainy right now. But
You look great.
right, but I want to say this, Gina, this was an amazing episode here. With everything you put out there and everything that you put into the world, this thing is definitely going up on TikTok, YouTube, and everywhere else. So I want to thank you for that. And everybody, I'm going to end this recording. And anybody that gets this extra stuff, you're getting this behind the scenes stuff. Hopefully you'll enjoy it on YouTube. So hold on, let me stop that. I'll edit the last part out right here.